Is there a God? Hello, this is Chris speaking, Shores of Infinity, with one of the oldest questions of mankind. Is there a God? Now, the question itself is kind of funny. Nowadays, most people on earth either believe that there is one God or that there is no God. But originally, all human beings believed that there were several gods. Until a small tribe in the Middle East, who called themselves the Israelites or the Jews or whatever you want to call it, decided there was only one God. You can read this in the book of Joshua, in the Old Testament of the Bible or in the Torah. There was a decision. Joshua said to his people, from now on we will only follow one God, Yahweh, and we will not follow other gods anymore. Elohim. There are two passages like that in the book of Joshua, and usually Elohim is also translated with God, but in this case Elohim is translated with strange gods of the lands or something like this. So we know up to this point everyone believed in many gods, and then they decided no, there's only one God, or at least we will only follow this one God. This was not very significant until around 400-500 AD. The Roman Emperor decided that Christianity with only one God will be the religion of the Roman Empire. And between 600 and 700 AD, there was the Islamic expansion where Muhammad claimed the same thing. Nowadays, more than half of the total population of mankind believes that there's only one God, because more than half are either Christians or Muslims. But a large part of the human population are either Chinese or Indian, and in both of these countries and cultures, Christianity and Islam is not very strong. So in those countries, they either believe still that there are several gods or that there's no God. If we go back to the oldest known culture from whom we still have writing, the Sumerians, then it's clear that they believed that there were several gods. All these ancient cultures, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Chaldeans, the Hittites, the Egyptians, and so on. And later the Greeks and Romans, they all believed in several gods, and several powerful ones. We don't know if they were gods or sages or high priests or remnants of a previous human civilization that might have existed before 5,000, before 10,000, before 12,000 years ago, maybe during the last ice age. Who knows? All we know is that they worshipped someone, and it was not one. There were several of them. There might have been ETs for all we know. We don't know. What we do know, although there's not very much left over from the Sumerians, but there's a lot of stuff left over from the Sumerians. They had these cuneiform clay tablets, the translations of which I have been reading for more than 30 years, and it's very interesting. All the basics of our modern Western civilization and cultures are in there. Religion, astronomy, banking even, economy, animal husbandry, agriculture. It all comes from there. 360 degrees of the circle, 300 65 days of the year, and so on. It's all there already, including our creation myths. The Big Bang is in there, and the gods. So it is not completely unfair to say that we believe and behave very much like ancient Sumerians today. Our whole culture is based upon that. And much that has been written afterwards, including the Bible, is also based on Sumerian myths like the Gilgamesh epic. So we basically emulated everything, beknownst or unbeknownst, mostly unconsciously, of that ancient culture, except one thing, that there were several gods. Now many people believe that there's only one God, or at least several beings who were treated and revered like gods. Somehow they were powerful. The direct translation is powerful ones. And not all of them were nice. The idea of one very, very nice God goes back to Jesus. Because even before that, if you read the Old Testament, that God Yahweh that they were following was not very nice. He was only very nice to his followers as long as they did what he told them to do. Anyone who would not follow his commands to the letter would be annihilated, and all enemies would be annihilated. He is described very much in the way that all other gatherings of gods are described in the whole world, like bickering, very powerful human beings who constantly fight against each other. Look at the Greek gods, for example. Neil Gaiman picked this up in his American Gods book and TV series. So enough history. What does this mean for us in spirituality? Is there a God? Is there no God? Are there several gods? The Buddha is the most famous spiritual teacher who said there was no God. And Jesus and Muhammad are the most famous spiritual teachers who said there was one God, and there are countless ones who claim that there are several gods. But does it really matter to us? In our day-to-day lives in the gross sphere, the physical plane, it doesn't really matter. I don't know anyone who regularly speaks to gods or to the God. Like having a real conversation, not just a monologue without any answer. Now in New Age circles it's fashionable to say the universe instead of the God. It's also more gender neutral, the universe. But it's still kind of assumed that there's an intelligence out there that looks benevolently upon us and can help us. This whole manifestation hype is also going to that direction. You order something and the universe will provide. Really, that's awfully nice of it. If that were true, everything would be hunky-dory. Everyone would live a happy life. We would live in a paradise. Is that the case? No. We're living in a narcissistic, psychopathic society with wars and theft on big scale and so on. Lots of unhappy people. Lots of psychiatric diseases around. At least half of the human population has some kind of spiritual disease, from depression over mania to OCD, codependency, anxiety disorders, and so on. So many people are fed up and choose the spiritual path. The courage to stand alone. And here it doesn't matter if there is a God or not. Because if you use the three planes, the three existences, there's a gross sphere where we live our day-to-day lives and are unhappy in. There's a subtle sphere which was full of beings of all kinds of and sorts, including angels and demons and ghosts and gods and whatever. Then there's the mental or causal sphere that the Buddha describes, where there's nothing. Nothing happens. And beyond that, there's something that is indescribable, unfathomable, something that cannot be put into words. And again, people have called this God. Meher Baba, for example, called it God, because there was a lack of a better word for it. They knew there was something, but what? Definitely it's not a nice elderly gentleman with a long beard sitting there and answering all kinds of wishes like Santa Claus. What's out there beyond is something very impersonal, something very neutral. Not a being, or not several beings. All these beings, all these gods, they're part of the subtle sphere, of the vital. On the spiritual path, the only thing that counts for us is that as human beings, we are indeed special. We are not better than plants or animals, but we are special. In what way are we special? We are special because we have access to the subtle and causal realm, and even to the beyond that cannot be described. To have access to these other worlds will not necessarily solve our problems in the gross sphere, but it can make us free, moksha, from many delusions and problems that are unnecessary. Even if you have access to the subtle and mental and beyond, you still have to eat, you still have to breathe, you still have to sleep, you still have to take a dump and take a leak, because you still have a body. The body is tied to the gross sphere. If you're not tied to the gross sphere anymore, the body dies, and then who knows what happens afterwards. But as long as you're tied to the body, you're living in the gross sphere, and you have to take care of the body, which is a part of you. Not all of it, but an essential part of you. Without the body, there's no life. But another part, which does not seem to be the body, can enter these other worlds, the subtle, the causal, and can even contact the beyond. It cannot enter the beyond, but it can contact it. And it's not a being. As the Vedas describe it and Bernadette Roberts describe it, it is existence itself. It is isness. But you can't talk to it and you can't haggle with it. You can't say, if I believe in you, then you will fulfill my wishes and make my life easier. It doesn't work like that. And it doesn't matter either. On the spiritual path, what matters is that you give up the notion that there will be some kind of mommy or daddy who will save you, who will do the work for you. You have to do the work by yourself, alone. With the support of others, of course, but mostly by yourself. The courage to stand alone, as Yuji puts it. And to behold the beyond is terrible. Everyone who has experienced it says it's terrible, it's terrifying. It's very different than what he or she thought it would be. And also there's no one left to behold it, because there's no personality left. That's the aim of the spiritual path, and you might want to change your opinion of or about if you want to go there. Because the aim of the spiritual path is to lose your personality. There's no one there anymore to experience, to know, to do anything. You're an empty shell. Nirvana. At the same time, this is very liberating because all problems are gone. Because only a personality can have problems. What will not happen is that there will be a personality who will not have any problems anymore. Yeah? The problems and the personality both vanish beyond the mental realm. And this is such a great shock that your body may even die in the process of it. In the process of the calamity, as Yuji puts it. So to come full circle, is there a God? In spirituality, it doesn't matter. Because we as human beings have the opportunity, have the power, the potential to contact the thing. It's not even a thing. The existence beyond everything. The thing that started it. The Wuji, as Taoism puts it. The great nothingness. On the way to this great nothingness, you may believe in however many or few gods as you will. It doesn't matter. At least not for your spiritual path. It may matter to your personality or to other personalities or institutions like the church or churches, but to your spiritual path and to your soul it doesn't matter. From a Vedic perspective, all these beings that we call gods are part of the subtle, of the vital realm. And thus they have an influence on the gross realm. Or there might have been sages and priests and kings or even ETs who lived with physical bodies in the gross realm and were as powerful and as popular as gods. But that is all for naught in the spiritual path, because from the causal mental realm onwards it has no value. Thank you to all my patrons. Thank you for joining me as a Patreon. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and thank you for sharing the videos with your friends, and see you soon.